Traitors are back, and it's criminal. Ashes to Ashes, next Monday at 9 on BBC One.
Step into our world. Handel Week continues with The Messiah live from Westminster Abbey tomorrow at 7 p.m. on BBC Radio 3.
Now on BBC One, the BBC News with Jane Hill.
Tonight, a personal letter from the Prime Minister. Gordon Brown writes to everyone targeted in the smear campaign suggested by his former special advisor. Police opened fire on anti-government protesters in Bangkok. In a day of violence, 2 people have died and at least 70 were injured. And the legendary music producer Phil Spector has just been convicted of murdering an actress. Hello, good evening. Gordon Brown has written personally to David Cameron and other Tories targeted in a smear campaign being planned by one of his closest political advisers. The Prime Minister called emails written by Damien McBride a matter of great regret and said anyone caught doing anything similar in the future would be sacked. Here's our political correspondent, Laura Koonsberg.
David Cameron, George Osborne and Conservative MP Nadine Dorries, all recipients of private letters of regret tonight, handwritten by the Prime Minister. Gordon Brown stopped short of answering calls for him to say sorry after his former advisor was caught making unfounded and obscene claims about senior Tories. But in a public letter, in response to the scandal, he expresses his regret.
Writing to the country's most senior civil servant, Gordon Brown gives this assurance that no minister and no other political advisor had any knowledge of or involvement in these emails. And he says any advisor caught distributing notes like this should be sacked, saying the preparation or dissemination of inappropriate material or personal attacks have no part to play in the job of being a special advisor.
He's expressing great regret because he got caught. He brought those people into number 10 Downing Street. He employed them. He knew the sort of people they were. He knew the sort of way in which they went about their job. I don't say he knew specifically about these particular incidents, but he can have had no doubt at all that they were in the business of hatcheting anybody who got in their way.
So calls for an actual apology from Gordon Brown don't seem likely to disappear. But earlier, one of his senior cabinet colleagues said it was not his place to do so.
Gordon Brown had nothing to do with this. It was a private email exchange sent from one of his special advisors who is now gone, who went immediately on the spot. You apologise for things that you're responsible for. Otherwise, you make it absolutely clear what you think about this. And Gordon Brown has done that, and the person responsible has gone.
John Prescott's calling on links to be severed with Derek Draper, the self-styled unofficial Labour internet advisor who received the emails. Number 10's hopes of closing this story down are so far likely to be thwarted. Laura Koonsberg, BBC News.
Violent anti-government protests have continued all day in Bangkok. Soldiers opened fire on crowds in the country's capital this morning. The protesters responded by setting fire to buses and throwing petrol bombs. 2 people died and many dozens were injured. From Bangkok, here's Alistair Leithhead.
Fires burned on the streets of Bangkok as the army were finally sent in to break up the anti-government protests. They came early and reclaimed a main road blocked by the red-shirted demonstrators. Petrol bombs, rocks and bottles from the protesters. Harmless explosions from the military to try and scare the crowd away. But as a bus was set on fire, the troops moved. This was enough provocation for the rules to suddenly change.
Well, suddenly the army started opening fire with live rounds. They were trying to shoot above, but some of those bullets were being fired into the crowd. It scarpered the red shirts who'd gone down here, and the military are now following them. They're firing down this alleyway just down here as well.
Then behind us, the protesters drove another bus at the troops. It started clashes on a second front. The red shirts were driven away. There were some serious injuries. The red shirts represent the poor. Their icon is Thaksin Shinawatra, the exiled former Prime Minister who improved their lives while alienating the elite and powerful.
The poor cannot get help, and then during my administration, the poor feel like, the democracy is really mean to them. After being taken away.
The current Prime Minister said the military would be cautious, but order had to be restored. The focus then turned to Government House, the red stronghold. After dark, the locals turned on them, their momentum perhaps starting to stall. As the troops sat a short distance away, waiting for their chance to restore order. But at what cost will it come? Alistair Leith, BBC News, Bangkok.
Police in Nottingham have arrested 114 people suspected of planning an environmental protest at a coal-fired power station. Officers made the arrests after raiding a school in the early hours of this morning. Those held or questioned on suspicion of conspiracy to commit aggravated trespass and criminal damage at the Ratcliffe-on-Soar power station. President Barack Obama has congratulated the American military for rescuing a ship's captain who was taken hostage by Somali pirates. Captain Richard Phillips was freed after U.S. Navy snipers shot dead 3 of the 4 hijackers holding him on a lifeboat. The United States is to ease its long-standing economic embargo on Cuba. A White House spokesman said Cuban Americans who've been restricted to 1 visit a year to the island will now be able to make unlimited trips and carry out money transfers to relatives there. In the last hour, the music producer Phil Spector has been found guilty of killing an actress at his Los Angeles mansion. Lana Clarkson was found shot dead at Spector's home 6 years ago. It was Spector's second trial on the charge after a previous jury failed to reach a verdict. Rajesh Merchandani reports from Los Angeles.
This was the scene a few moments ago when music producer Phil Spector was found guilty of murder.
We, the jury in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Philip Spector, guilty of the crime of second-degree murder of Lana Clarkson.
A spectacular fall for a showbiz legend. He launched the careers of acts like the Righteous Brothers and is credited with virtually inventing the girl group. But by the mid-70s, Phil Spector's style was out of fashion and he was a recluse. He met Lana Clarkson at the nightclub in Los Angeles where the former B-movie actress was working. That night in 2003, surveillance cameras caught them leaving together, the last pictures of her alive. Spector invited Miss Clarkson back to his mansion for a drink. Hours later, she lay dead in the lobby, shot through the mouth. 2007, a very public murder trial. Spector looked every bit the erratic mogul, as prosecutors claimed he was hot-tempered and had threatened women with guns before. The defense said a depressed Lana Clarkson killed herself. Jurors couldn't agree who pulled the trigger.
At this time, I will find that the jury is unable to arrive at a verdict and declare a mistrial in this matter.
2008, the retrial. The TV cameras largely gone, but for Spector still the possibility of life in prison. But this time, jurors were told if they couldn't all agree on murder, they could consider involuntary manslaughter with a much lower sentence, or they could acquit. For 50 years, Phil Spector's music has influenced and touched millions. But what happened one night 6 years ago may define his legacy. Rajesh Merchandani, BBC News, Los Angeles.
Well, you can see more on that story and all the day's national and international news throughout the evening and the night here on the BBC News Channel. Now on BBC One, we join our news teams wherever you are. Good night.
Good evening, I'm Mike Liggins. A man who escaped from an armed police siege in Essex is protesting his innocence on a newspaper website. Police have appealed for the man, believed to be Mark Norton, to give himself up, but he says he'll stay free for as long as he can.
This is the midst of a 3-hour armed siege in Shoebury. It was filmed by a neighbour. Police officers sealed off the area and surrounded this house. They were searching for Mark Norton, who they'd come to arrest, but claimed he was carrying a gun. Eventually they entered the property and found he'd already gone.
There was about 3 or 4 police cars down that end, one down that end, and all the